1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey there, Skullheads, I'm Snags.
And I'm Ol Silky.
And y'all about to get a Ramones episode dropped on your ass.
Hey, ho, let's go.
That's right. God damn it.
So continuing with like the Stooges conversation, by the mid-70s, rock had become plagued with protest bands and jam bands. Bands would stretch a song out for 30 to 45 minutes, trudging, plodding along. It was in desperate need of a good boot in the ass.
And we're going to talk about that, but first we're going to wish Keith Richards a happy 80th birthday.
80th birthday, Keith Richards, the original bad boy, you know.
December 18th is Keith Richards' birthday. He's 80. If you'd have told anybody back in the 70s that Keith Richards and Iggy Pop were both going to make it to the ages they're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, how many people have they outlived, you know?
If you'd have bet money on that, you could have got some killer odds and you'd be a millionaire.
Yeah, they've outlived all of the original members of the Ramones.
Yeah, insane. But anyways, Silky's got a little intro here he's going to lay down for you cats, and then we're going to jump right into it.
I was just going to say that, you know, by the mid-70s, 75, a lot of the big bands that had influenced the Ramones were just, you know, plodding dinosaurs, trudging along, slowing down. Drugs had taken its toll on a lot of these bands. So, you know, you got the Ramones, who were influenced by 60s pop music, that classic formula of rock and roll. Just a, you know, 2-minute song, lyrics, you know, light and fluffy and ready to tear into. You know, they were probably the only band that could make you feel sorry for a guy that has to beat on a brat with a baseball bat. With a brat like that always on your palm, you don't really have a choice. They asked, what can you do? And you almost feel bad for the guy that he's got to beat on this kid. And that's the Ramones. It's just, they were just so pure, and they captured lightning.
They loved to sniff glue. They didn't want to go down to the basement. You know, they didn't care.
And who does? Who wants to go down in the basement? Speaking of down in the basement, this is an on location episode. We're actually down in the basement tonight.
We're recording from down in the basement. Last week we were recording from down on the street.
Down on the streets. Yep.
Yeah.
It was cold last week.
Yeah.
So,
but they were also influenced, of course, by the Stooges. They had a very eclectic, for a band that gets accused of having a simple sound. They actually had a very eclectic music taste, and they were influenced by a lot of people. Covered Tom Waits on their last album. Yeah, it was really all over the place.
Listening to the Ramones, you're reminded of like Chuck Berry's. Chuck Berry had that riff, and he put it in a lot of songs. And Johnny Ramone had a run on the guitar, but they still managed to have such a diverse, you know, songs throughout their career.
Yeah, and Johnny Ramone actually invented a whole style of punk rock guitar playing, because again, the term punk was just barely being used at the time. I think there was a magazine that started using the term, and a lot of these bands started calling it punk rock. But the first album's got the song "Judy is a Punk," and and this whole style of guitar playing, which is just downstroke over and over again instead of strumming the up and down, Instead of that ding 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 ding, it's dun 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 dun. And that whole style of guitar playing, rhythm guitar playing, was basically invented and popularized by Johnny Ramone. And Joey actually did write some of the chord progressions.
Nice.
Some of these songs, like "Beat on the Brat," for example, are written by Joey Ramone. There's no other writers listed. And according to this one documentary that we'll be linking in the Click Pit, the Ramones: A True Story, Joey had a little 2-string guitar. It was a beat up old guitar. It only had the lowest 2 strings on it, and he would just strum out, running up and down the fretboard, making bar chords with those 2 strings to write songs, and then Johnny would learn the chord progression.
Their first 3 albums, Ramones, and then Leave Home and Rocket to Russia, those all have anniversary versions that have live shows, demos, and rarities. And on several of those versions, there are acoustic takes of some of the songs.
That's cool.
Probably where they're just trying to figure out how they're going to,
put it together,
Ramonize it.
Yeah.
So if we go back, Jeffrey Hyman, John Cummings, Douglas Coleman, and Thomas Erdelyi, or Joey, Johnny, Dee Dee, and Tommy, all become the Ramones. But that was all influenced by Paul McCartney, because back in the 60s when the Beatles were touring, Paul would check into hotels as Paul Ramone. And I just think it's great that they heard that story and decided we're gonna change our last names to Ramone. And I'm sure with the same Beatle cut, hairstyle, and everything, I'm sure the media all thought they were related somehow, that they all had the same last names and that kind of thing.
They also took their look. Yeah, that kind of Beatles bowl cut kind of thing, slightly longer, whatever you want to call it, Beatles haircut. The Stooges were the kind of the first punk band to display the slightly longer Beatles haircut on their first couple albums, and the Ramones, I'm sure, took it from them. I mean, you look at those Stooges out, the first Stooges album where they're posing like the Doors,
Yeah,
and they've all slightly longer.
And the Stooges were on Elektra, so I'm sure they were, capitalizing on the album cover. That first Stooges album just screams Doors to me.
Yeah, so. But the Ramones definitely took some cues from the Stooges as far as just attitude and look, and the lyrics. It's not too far away from "Your pretty face is going to hell" to "You're a loudmouth, baby, you better shut up." I mean, there's a thread there from the lyrics as well.
Well, listening to the Ramones today in preparation for this amazing show tonight,
stellar show,
stellar. I made a playlist called "I Don't Care," and that's sent that to you.
But that'll be on the Click Pit for all you cats.
Some of the songs, they're on, like, first introduction, the lyrics are almost silly, or you take the song like "I Don't Care," and it's funny. There's a sense of humor to it, but they sing it so serious, and I think that lends an attraction to it.
They come out with an attitude, like they're a biker gang or they're an army regiment, and they all look so serious, low slung guitars, and then they're singing about Blitzkrieg Bop,
or I don't want to go down to the basement,
Now I
Um,
want to slip some glue.
yeah, the
Yeah,
the
it's
one
fun as
though,
hell.
the one that I always am drawn to with them, one of them is I don't want to walk around with you, and I just picture a guy
Why you want to walk around me?
trying.
Oh,
He's trying to be nice, but he's got to walk around like they're down at the beach, or he's gonna
yeah,
walk around with this girl, and he just doesn't like her,
yeah,
and she's and you think about how Dee Dee really did a lot of drugs and stuff, and he may have written that about someone where maybe they're going to cop, or he's in a relationship. And I believe there was a girl he was in a relationship with that would turn violent constantly, uh
yeah.
her
He
on
used to
him
get.
and him on her. And so that I always think that, like, I don't want to walk around with you, why do you want to walk around with me, uh is a great, um, almost bio song on
I
that
think it
relationship.
was. I think it was CBGB's proprietor Hilly Crystal in this documentary. Um, said that she used to beat him up. Basically,
Yeah, yeah.
he would he'd piss her off, and then he'd show up with a black eye or whatever. He says Dee Dee's girlfriend had a good right hook. So,
Well, there's a story of her with a knife, coming after him or something and fucking somebody's couch up.
uh, I wouldn't be surprised in the least.
And whoever it was like, God, that's great. You guys are fighting, but that's my couch, and
Yeah.
um, just a big old gash down the back of the couch.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
So
they go ahead.
I was just gonna say they this is a band with an avalanche of good songs, especially the first album up through Pleasant Dreams. Um, End of the Century, and we'll talk about all these albums. End of the Century gets a little spotty with Phil Spector getting in there, muddling around, and they're back. They're back to their sound with Pleasant Dreams. Solid fucking album, in my opinion.
Yeah, all
The,
the way
the,
up for me up to 87. Brain Drain. That's the beginning of kind of. There's still, even though I say that, there's like three or four worth getting the whole album for.
oh, sure. There's good songs on all these albums, but as far as just solid albums, Ramones, Leave Home, Rocket to Russia, Road to Ruin, and Pleasant Dreams. That's five solid albums, jam packed with great songs. And then they get back into form towards the end with Mondo Bizarro and Acid Eaters and Adios Amigos. And then all the albums in between, there's at least two or three really good songs on those. So this is a band with just an avalanche of good songs. There, if there was a Beatles of classic punk rock, it
Oh
would
yeah,
be the Ramones for sure.
I
Just too many good songs.
76 to 87. I take every one of those albums.
Oh,
Um,
Animal Boy's
and
weak, man.
oh no,
Animal,
well, Animal Boy's got, Bonzo Goes to Bitburg. Somebody put
you
something in
know,
my drink.
I
That's
know it's got some
that
great
song.
songs, and then it has a lot of kind of just. So does Too Tough to Die. I always, because of
Yeah,
Warthog, I always think of that as a solid album, but it's got a lot of kind
no,
of pop
yeah,
slap on there too.
and for some reason, thank God, none of that leaked over into the live show.
Oh,
You
you
know,
see them on any of these tours, they're gonna blow the fucking roof off.
yeah, I mean, so
Yeah,
they'll put out
always.
halfway to Sanity, but then when you go see them, they're gonna just melt your face.
Yeah. So
Um,
there was this kind of little period
Go
where
figure.
they were trying to get either trying to get on the radio or they're just in the mood to write a bunch of soft schmaltzy type stuff, and then they'd throw two or three rockers on each album, but live they would always just rip
Yeah,
your
I mean,
face off.
like I Want to Live and Bob Till You Drop, Weasel Face, um, those really stand out. And yeah, some of the other stuff is hit or miss.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but at least live, they still just plugged in and ripped.
They brought it, man.
Yeah.
And 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 we'll kind of we will get to the album by album thing, but I just want to say they had a kind of parallel existence with the band that we cannot seem to stop mentioning all the time, which is Motorhead, where you had these two bands that kind of came into form in the late 70s and the early 80s, and then as the late 80s came along and the 90s came along, they never stopped, man. They just kept touring, and the shows would just be fucking phenomenal.
And
And so,
they had such an iconic look that sold it.
right,
Um, where I will say, like Iron Maiden had Eddie, and Eddie was that brand that you when you saw Eddie, you knew it was Iron Maiden, and Motorhead had the War Pig face on everything, and the Ramones had the presidential eagle, which
yeah,
I believe that was Arturo Vega. Um,
yeah.
just
On my
tremendous.
the shirt that
Yeah,
I'm wearing tonight, yeah.
yeah. Um,
And but the thing is, though, the Ramones also had the long kind of Beatles haircuts in the leather jackets,
yeah,
and the
yeah.
jeans. You see
Visually on
that,
stage,
yeah.
it was similar to like
That's
the Blues Brothers, the black and white, the suits. Their
yeah,
suits were,
they had uniforms. They had uniforms,
yeah.
basically, and
Uh,
it's kind of like Lemmy with with the hat, and Lemmy had his style. Motorhead, you could always knew it was Motorhead because you had this fucking character
yeah,
fucking looking up at this microphone that he had hanging down. Nobody else sang like that with the bass and the
sure,
mutton chops. And it's Lemmy. There was a visual look there. Doesn't matter who else was in the band with him. They'd kind of adopt a similar look. And the
yeah,
Ramones, same kind of thing.
yeah.
But and they were good friends. The Ramones. I remember watching a Jay Leno episode in the '90s where the Ramones were getting interviewed, and Motorhead had been on a couple weeks ago, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we asked Lemmy how it was. He said it was pretty good. So
Yeah.
we're because he was like, Jay Leno was like, "Are you nervous? Are you nervous coming on the Tonight Show?" And he was, and he's
Leno.
yeah,
Oh,
and they were like, "No, we talked to Lemmy. He said it would be pretty cool." So those two bands, and you got the song Ramones that Motorhead covered, and
I think
so
Motorhead wrote that. Lemmy wrote that.
oh, did he? Well, then the Ramones covered. Didn't the Ramones do a version of it?
They do it live.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know that it's on us. It might be on Adios Amigos, or
Yeah. I don't know. Um.
I know
Anyways,
it's on
so
their
yeah, they're
live.
writing. So Lemmy writes a song about them and all the rest of it. So um. So the first album, 1976. Do you have anything else to say about him on the intro before we start talking about the
No,
album?
'cause the other stuff I have, I can certainly bring up later. That's fine.
All right. So the first album, Ramones, 1976. Um, and I remember some documentary. I think it was just a punk rock documentary, and someone said, I saw that album, and I said, those guys look like the Stooges. I'm gonna buy that album.
Yeah, and
So
it's a great black and white shot of them just leaning against a brick wall, probably outside of a pub or something. Um,
yeah.
it, I mean, Leonard Skinner did the same thing. Sat outside. It was a great shot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but this was a epic album because it's like 14 songs in 29 minutes.
Yeah, and just
It's
jam
just,
packed. There's not one bad song on here.
no,
Blitzkrieg Bop, Beat on the Brat, Judy is a Punk, I Want to Be Your Boyfriend, Chainsaw, Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue, I Don't Want to Go Down to the Basement, Loudmouth, Havana Affair, Listen to My Heart, 53rd and 3rd. That's Dee Dee writing about turning tricks out on 53rd and 3rd. Let's Dance, I Don't Want to Walk Around with You, Today Your Love, Tomorrow the World, which is a killer fucking Dee Dee Ramone.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, Let's Dance
so
is a cover. That's an old Chris Montez cover, but
yeah,
they crush it.
man,
And that's the thing is, I would say the Ramones, in one of these books, the Ramones basically wanted to be the Bay City Rollers, um, a mix of like bubblegum and hard rock and roll. And it's funny because you're like the Bay City Rollers, um, and they had that bowl cut haircut as well. Um,
yeah. I think the Sex Pistols, and this is gonna sound crazy, but I think I remember hearing that they kind of liked the Bay City Rollers too. I've never listened to the Bay City Rollers. I just
no,
know
you
growing
got
up,
Saturday Night, and I never, I don't understand it. But the
yeah,
thing is, though, in Europe, you had really corny, oddball bands that were just explosive. Everybody loved the Bay City Rollers at that time, all through Europe. It was a big deal. Slade, you look at Slade, and Slade is very. They had some great heavy stuff, but they dressed so weird. Um,
yeah,
it's funny. When Slade is good, they're on fire. There's some stuff that's just lost in translation because you're not living in Dublin or whatever. Um, it just doesn't quite translate well. I think in America you've got kind of that just blue jeans and almost like the old West mentality, and so you're able to take Ted Nugent, and that's great, and all the guitar rock of the '70s. Um, but Bay City Rollers, it's just not. I don't get it, but you know,
yeah.
it
Me
does.
either.
It does add to
So
their
then,
appeal with the simple lyrics and the sing songy stuff that is still
mm,
fueled with Johnny's guitar that makes it acceptable to me.
yeah, there's a lot of melody in despite the limitations of Joey Ramone's voice, there's a lot of melody in a lot of these songs. So the next one was the next one was
Leave home.
uh, Leave Home, and that one was Tommy Erdelai um, co-produced
Produced.
the first one. He also co-produced. Well, it says on the wiki it says it was co-produced, but um, the second one he co-produced with Tony Bon Jovi, who is
Yeah,
the cousin of John
yeah,
Bon Jovi.
that's the
Yeah,
last time we mentioned that guy.
right, right. Um, and another just solid effort. They actually had a better production values on this one. Although to me, I mean, it all sounds awesome, but they had more time to record, better studio facilities.
Yeah, I
Glad to
tell you,
see
I,
you.
I love the first album more than this one, but this one is almost a blueprint of the first album. They're both so classic. Uh, they're just epic. Commando, I just love that song. And again, that's that extremely humorous, almost comic book, but it's so serious. They deliver it so well. They do a great cover of California Sun. Um, I think that was the Rivieras back in the early '60s or late '50s.
Mm,
Tremendous
yeah,
song.
this thing is packed. Every song is good on this one. Glad to see you go. Gimme, gimme, shock treatment. And that's a good example. There's a lot of songs about mental illness on these albums, and they're done tongue in cheek, I think, on the one hand, but also Joey Ramone was OCD. Dee Dee Ramone had all kinds of addiction issues. Johnny Ramone definitely had anger issues.
Oh,
So,
slightly.
So all these songs, about mental illness, I think a lot of it was coming from experience. But glad to see you go. Gimme shock treatment. I remember you. Oh, I love her so. Carbona not glue. Susie is a headbanger. Pinhead. Now I want to be a good boy. Swallow my pride. What's your game? California Sun. Commando. You're gonna kill that girl. You should never have opened that door. Just solid back to back album here. I'm not going to recite every song from every album. I'm just going to recite the good ones. But these early ones, man, every song is good.
Yeah, and
Just
again, this is 29 minutes long, and they
yeah,
just bash you about the head and neck. 14 songs,
yep,
most of them under 2 minutes long, and
yep,
just no mercy, all business. And when you see them live, you see footage of them live. I noticed today, um, they kick in, and Joey would stand at the mic. All of them would almost not move, and
yeah,
that became the show where
yeah.
they're just uh, almost shaking with rage. But Joey would hold on to the mic and lean back and then shout into the mic. But what's funny is if you look at it, you can almost it's almost like he's in a wind tunnel and fighting to stay on the stage the way
Yeah.
he stands, and
Oh, he
it's
was
like
a
he
lanky. He
come
was a
back.
lanky motherfucker, and yeah, he would lean back from the microphone and yeah, back and forth.
It's just funny. I'm like,
I
it's like he's being blown off the stage. uh,
remember
uh,
hearing Dee Dee talk about why he left the Ramones, and I'm sure dealing with Johnny's bossiness was part of it, and him really. And we'll talk to more about that when we get to it. But one of the reasons he listed I thought was kind of funny was when he sang Warthog, he had to lean closer to the mic, and when he's singing backup vocals, he's having to lean closer to the mic, and the mic used to hit his teeth.
yeah.
He was like, "Look, it hurt when the mic hit my teeth, so I left the band."
um, yeah, they were jokingly referred to as the Maroons instead of
Well,
the Marines.
I think, didn't I come up with that? The
No, no,
Maroons.
that's in one of the
Oh,
that's
okay.
in that on the bus or whatever.
Oh, on the road, the one written by the
Mhm.
road manager. There's a great book that I've read. Silky's in the middle of, written by their road manager, and we'll link that from the Click Pit. It's got a lot of great stories in it. But yeah, see, I thought I had come up with the Maroons as the
Oh, no, they were talking about just that militaristic Johnny
oh,
Ramone running it like a drill sergeant.
so
Um,
that's where I got that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that's funny.
Johnny referred to each night as the job, like
Oh yeah,
it was. I do think he had a love of music. He was a huge Elvis collector. Um, you can't be in the Ramones and not like music, but I think he
yeah.
looked at it as something to do. And if you think about some of those early songs, now I want to have something to do. Um, it was always about keeping yourself occupied. Yeah.
Yeah, he had. There's a great book about him too that I read, Commando, I think it's called, and we'll link to that in the Click Pit, regardless of whether I got the title right there. But his whole psychological path with the Ramones, he thought they were going to get huge. This whole punk rock thing was brand new. Nobody knew what it would lead to. He thought the Ramones and the Sex Pistols were going to be like the Beatles and the Stones.
Mhm.
When that didn't happen,
But I
and
almost blame the Sex Pistols for that.
oh, the Ramones blame the Sex Pistols too. Go ahead and talk about why.
The Sex Pistols came out. I want to say the Ramones toured Europe. People went and saw the Ramones. Here's guys that aren't wowing you with some 40-minute guitar solo, hitting all the harmonics and Richie Blackmore. Deep Purple had a song called Mandrake Root, and it would be 45 minutes long.
Oh
And
yeah.
you're just like, for God's sake, play. There's songs I'd like to hear you guys play. This isn't one of them. Um, but
At least
so
not longer than 5 minutes.
yeah, so I think the Ramones actually tore through Europe, and the Sex Pistols. The Ramones leave, head back to America, and like spores, uh, you have these bands pop up.
The first Ramones show in England is legendary, and that a lot of people were at that show that ended up starting famous punk bands in England.
Yeah,
But that first show, they they hadn't seen it. It was like when the Stooges first started playing in the U.S. Nobody'd seen anything like it, and then the Ramones come over to England and do the same thing for England, except for people were ready for it, but they had not seen anything like that. And
yeah.
if you look it up, I've seen it in some documentaries. I can't remember the names. I think there might have been some Sex Pistols there and some cats from the Clash, but there was people there that went out and started bands after that. Let's play fast and loud.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm not
scream
real
lyrics
good,
that
but
fucking shock people.
let's plug in and do something. And
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. That's what's so powerful about music.
The
But I think
reason,
the Sex Pistols just thumb in the eye kind of attitude. Nothing was sacred, and they just pissed a lot of people off. There's stories of Johnny Lydon, aka Johnny Rotten, being chased down the street by old, you know, 50-year-old dudes, and they would beat the shit out of him whenever they saw him. So, like,
yeah,
the Sex Pistols are, getting bigger and bigger, and they're all over the newspaper. And Lydon's having to run for his life down the street.
they
You know?
caused a lot of controversy. They've
Yeah,
they were that, and I think it's awesome. There's a famous interview in England where they were on they're getting interviewed and on live TV, and they started dropping the F bomb and all kinds of shit that you did not do.
yeah, yeah,
And um uh they caused a lot of controversy. The media started freaking out about punk rock, and Johnny Ramone definitely blames them for the whole movement not getting as big as it could have, because that
yeah.
reflected on all the other punk.
Because
But
then it became an agenda to crush the
yeah,
punk movement.
this dangerous movement that's going to
Yeah.
destroy society,
Um,
and I think that I don't. Even without that, I don't think it would have gotten as big as the Stones and the Beatles, because it's just a different kind of music. This is
well, it's
more
a
of a
different kind of music, but you look at Tony Iommi, due to his accident, invents heavy metal. That's
yeah,
still going,
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But
and
it's not the Beatles and the Stones.
no,
You don't
Sabbath
compare stuff.
Sabbath definitely made millions.
Yeah,
But
they got bigger than the Ramones, but I think the essence of punk rock, as Iggy, his intention when he created it was, I want to create a blues for my own people, and it's like this suburban youth blues, and it's just not the type of music that's going to get huge.
yeah, um,
Robert Johnson was never gonna be filling stadiums and get huge.
no,
There's a,
no,
there's a it's a roots music, and it stays close to the ground.
yeah.
I do think that the punk getting a bad name from the Sex Pistols definitely stunted it to some extent, but I don't think they were ever. It's like Motorhead. Motorhead, my probably my top one or two band in the world. They were just never going to get huge, because it's not the type of music that gets huge.
It's too honest. It's not going
Yeah,
to cater, and
yeah,
I think if you're going to be a popular band, you have to kind of continuously look at your audience and figure out what they want, and then you're almost playing to them. You're an extension of them now, i.e., U2 or some other bands that I don't feel are worthy of my mentioning. but they're right here in the front of the head. Bands that uh, just are chasing after the next sound, the next look, the next image, and
Right.
it's not
Or
honest.
creating it like the Beatles, but they're
Yes,
a once in a generation talent,
yeah,
Of
but
course they were going to be huge. They were geniuses and they were creating the next thing with every
well,
album,
yeah,
but
and they changed constantly, but that was like a natural progression
yeah, yeah. You
to go
can't
from
expect yourself to
"Love
be
Me Do" to Your Mother Should Know.
yeah.
That's not overnight, you know.
You can't expect yourself to be as big as the Beatles if you're not the Beatles. You're the Ramones, and thank
Basically,
God for that because I probably
yeah.
listen to the Ramones more than the Beatles,
I
anyways,
mean,
just with my taste.
I've made this analogy before. Certain bands never changed their style. So much like a bottle of whiskey, you can
Yeah,
come back to it. You know, in life, maybe you go 5 years, you're like, man, I haven't bought a bottle of Jack Daniels. Let me, you know, and you're gonna go get that bottle, and it's gonna taste the same as it did.
yeah,
So your ACDCs, your Stooges, your Ramones, your Motorheads, it's always going to be a hey, welcome back, you know.
yep, yep.
Um, and I mean,
And they
ACDC's last album, Power Up, is one of the best albums they've done in 40 years. It's I put that thing in when I first got it, I couldn't get it out of my player, you know.
yeah, that band leads the way in not fucking with your sound. Just do what
No.
you do good and
Yeah.
keep doing. So the third Ramones album, Rocket to Russia, is also produced by the same two
Mhm.
cats, Tony Bon Jovi and Tommy Erdelai, and they again they knock out just complete masterpiece. This could be their zenith, although really these first four albums are just all inseparable. But Cretin Hop, Rockaway Beach, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, Locket Love, I Don't Care, Sheena is a Punk Rocker, We're a Happy Family, Teenage Lobotomy, Do You Want to Dance, I Want to Be Well, I Can't Give You Anything, Ramona, Surfing Bird, Why Is It Always This Way? Just and when I first got into the Ramones, I had the first album, and then I had this album, and I had Pleasant Dreams, and it
Mm.
was cool later on, to get the when I started completing my collection and getting the CDs, to discover Road to Ruin and Leave Home, two more albums that are both just as awesome. But what are your thoughts on this album, Silky?
Sheena's a Punk Rocker is just epic. That is just a phenomenal song. It's almost 3 minutes long. It's I think it's the longest one on here. Um, what I like about them is their cover song. We were talking about the bubblegum influence. They
Mm-hmm.
cover "Do You Want to Dance," "Surfing Bird." They do a killer um, "Needles and Pins" cover that was part of "Rocket to Russia." It was a B side. And Sonny Bono wrote that Needles and Pins,
Mm-hmm.
and the Ramones do just an epic cover of Needles and Pins. Jackie DeShannon did it back in '63, and the Searchers is another band famous for doing Needles and Pins, but
That
uh,
shows up on a later album, right?
Needles and Pins
Yeah.
probably on uh, Road to Ruin, I think. But it first appears on the 40th anniversary lineup where they're giving you kind of chronological things that they had worked on.
Yeah, this
Um,
is so it's like a bonus track. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, those first three albums have 40th anniversary. They're just epic. Each one of them has shows from that tour, full live shows. So you really get to, having not been there in '77, you can capture those shows. on these releases and puts you right there. And just their
Yeah.
energy, it really carries you. But just the cover songs they did really tells about a band. Van Halen covering the Kinks. You get to see who their influences were,
Mm-hmm.
and Needles and Pins is just hilarious.
Oh,
The way
yeah. So
Joey,
Needles and Pins is not on Rocket to Russia, but it was recorded as a demo, and then it shows up on Road to Ruin as
yeah,
the official track listing. Yeah, you're
yeah.
you're right.
But yeah, Rocket to Russia. Those first three are just solid as you can get, and just pure honesty.
Mhm.
Right up there with that first run of Motorhead albums.
Mhm. Yep, nonstop. And I would put Road to Ruin same thing. I think they did a grand slam there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Their first eight are uh, so they're popular enough that the first three have the anniversary versions, but the next five are all expanded editions with B sides and demos and stuff. So they clearly there's a demand.
mhm.
If those albums sell enough, they're gonna, hey, well, here's a expanded version, and then that people like me nab that shit up as long as the wife's not around, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so
So Road to Ruin comes out in '78, produced by Tommy Early and Ed Stasium, and track listing. I just want to have something to do. I wanted everything. Don't come close. I don't want you. Needles and pins. I'm against it. I want to be sedated. Go mental. Questioningly, she's the one. Bad brain. It's a long way back. A few more ballads on this than you would find on the last three, um, but still solid. Includes a song "Bad Brain" that one of the most legendary punk rock bands in the history of the known universe, Bad Brains, took their name from.
yeah.
Um, so just another classic album dropped from the Ramones. What are your thoughts on Road to
um
Ruin?
some of their real catchy, again, the you're thinking of the Ramones as just leather and blue jeans and hard edge punk. If you think about punks in general, visually, like across the street, oh shit, they look dangerous. They look, you're not quite sure how you're gonna get down the street from them. But in my life, in my banging around, um, you think of some of the guys that you saw in Repo Man. I used to hang out with them, and you too, Snags. Um, we knew a lot of punks coming up. I would say you and I were more the metalheads, but there was a time where we hung with quite the punk crowd that would watch horror movies all night, listen to the Misfits, and light their
I
own
never
farts. And
I never had the spiky hair or the mohawk, but I always had some Husker Du and Ramones and replacements in my record collection for
yeah,
sure.
but I mean, we
And,
knew like legitimate punks, and what I'm
mhm.
getting at is that on the surface they appeared dangerous as hell, but as you got to know them, most of them were actually really human, really approachable and good, solid people that I'd be happy uh, to live next door to. Whereas the flip side,
The
the
hippies were
the
always just
hippies,
arrogant, condescending
yeah,
bastard motherfuckers,
and 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 who was Charles
and they
Manson?
still are.
Who was Charles Manson?
Hippie, from what I
Okay,
recall.
that's all. Okay, we're
Yeah.
case closed. But so again, you look at their influences and some of their songs, um, Needles and Pins, um, to I'm Against It, and I'm Against It's another one that is just hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's like, I don't like Burger King. I don't like anything. you know.
Yeah.
Just I
Great
love,
lyrics, man.
I fucking love that song. I'm against
Yeah.
it. It's just, hey, and most punks I know will tell you, yeah, I don't like that, and you're like, what? And I laugh and I catch myself because it's
I don't think most punks would say they didn't like "I'm Against It." That's a great
no,
song.
I'm saying most punks in life will say about something, I'm
Oh,
against
oh,
that.
yeah,
I don't
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
They get
Yeah, it's
off
more
on
it's more fun to talk about shit you're against than shit you're for.
right.
You know?
No, but like
Yes.
any whatever the conversation is, oh, the Beatles, the Beatles are amazing. I don't really like the Beatles, and you're
Right,
like, you fucking punk, shut up
right,
about the Beatles.
right.
But it's funny to me, and then you look at like questioningly is just a very very much
Sappy,
a
sappy ballad
syrupy
written by
ballad,
Dee Ramone. Yeah.
but it's got such a badass guitar rhythm behind it.
Yeah.
I actually knee jerk when I was 14, I hated this song.
Hmm.
Um, I really love the guitar in this song. It's almost like a Rod Stewart
Hmm.
Faces thing or something.
Hmm.
Um, but She's the One is another, and that's like total Beatles bubblegum pop song.
Yeah, yeah.
But they managed to keep that
Make it
leather
work.
jacket on.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's just amazing how many back to back just great quality tunes these cats
yeah,
dropped. It really is.
yeah, and such a flourish. You think so? They toured. They did in their career. They did 2,263 shows, and
Dag, yeah.
they toured nonstop for 22 years. Now,
That's yeah. Just like Motorhead, man. Just don't stop. That
yeah,
was the thing. Just
that's
don't
a
stop. And
thousand.
look at this legacy they left us.
But think
You know?
about that. If you 22 years, 2,200 shows, that's 1,000 shows a year, right?
Yeah.
And you look at Metallica, they might do 60 shows and then they're off for a year and a half.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? A
Oh yeah.
full world tour. Um,
Well,
um,
Metallica didn't have to keep doing shows to pay the bills. There's a
no,
practical aspect to
like
that.
like
Metallica's rich as fuck.
Iron Maiden on the Peace of Mind or the World Slavery Tour, the Power Slave Tour. I believe they did over 150 shows around the
Hmm.
world, and Bruce Dickinson almost left the band. So,
Yeah.
again, the Ramones, 1,000 shows a year.
Right.
I mean, it's phenomenal to me. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah. So uh the next album 1980, I think this is the arc. So what I was going to say with earlier with Johnny Ramone's psychological journey with this band. When he first started it, yeah, it was something to do, but it was also he thought they were going to be the Beatles and Sex Pistols were going to be the Stones and punk was going to take over the world. And that didn't quite happen, wasn't quite happening, and so they go and work with Phil Spector here and get produced and think this is gonna put them over the top. And we'll talk about this album Into the Century they recorded with Phil Spector, but basically it didn't put them over the top. And at some
No.
point Johnny Ramone just said, okay, we're not going to become these huge multimillionaire rock stars like the Beatles or the
And I think
Stones.
this is the first album that's comes it downshifts from the first four albums.
Because they're trying, it's like
Yeah.
when Metallica recorded the Black album, they're
Yeah.
trying to make an album that's more accessible, and it ends up just being worse because they're not being themselves.
Well, this
But
had a $200,000 budget, And then you've got Phil Spector, who's talking to Joey Ramone during the sessions for this, saying, I want to make you the next solo guy. Phil Spector
Yeah,
talking to Joey about, doing his own
right.
thing, which is like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You know?
So what I was saying about Johnny Ramone's journey here is that basically when this album doesn't make them huge and famous, he basically just says, "Okay, I'm just gonna we're just gonna tour and make money touring. We're gonna
Mhm.
stick to our sound, and I'm gonna save up money." And he was pretty conservative financially, in that he just saved a lot of money, invested it in stocks, and basically said, "When I get to $1 million, I'm gonna quit." And
Mhm.
and that's exactly what happened. They got to $1 million. He got to $1 million and quit, and then
Pulled the
died a
plug.
couple of years later.
Yeah, I've got a thing on that. It's really sad. I can go into that.
Well, yeah, well, we can we go ahead and say something about it now. We'll delve into it more
All
when
right.
we get there.
Uh,
But I just wanted to finish
so
that train of thought on his
the
journey.
the first the four original guys. Joey was there 74 to 96. Johnny 74 to 96. Dee Dee 74 to 89. Um, he left and CJ came in. Uh, CJ Ramone from 89 to 96. Dee Dee would go on and do solo stuff. Tommy was there 74 to 78. And it's interesting that those Tommy albums are just untouchable. And I
Yep.
wouldn't blame the
Yeah.
drummer. I would never blame Marky. But
Marky
it's
was a solid fucking
yeah.
drummer,
And
despite the fact that
Marky,
he wears a wig. He is a solid drummer.
what's funny, Marky is on both of those Dust albums, Dust and Heart Attack.
Mhm.
I've sent you times I'm
Tell,
playing
tell
Dust.
tell everybody who's in Dusk.
Well,
Dust. DUST.
Marky and well, I don't have who else is in the band.
Stan Coronel, who co-wrote songs with Kiss.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
We've managed to work in another Kiss reference.
you you led us there, brother. Mentioning
Uh-huh.
that band.
Crazy.
Anyways, uh, yeah. So let's talk about Into the Century a bit.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
So Phil Spector produces this album. He uses all kinds of effects, overdubbing, echo chambers. When you look at the personnel listing on Wiki, you you got, first of all, significant change in the lineup. Tommy retires from the band to just focus on producing and engineering, which was his first love. There was also some tension between Joey and Tommy because apparently, and this is from that documentary Ramones, the true story, when those first three albums that Tommy produced for them didn't blow up like Joey
Um,
thought they were, first four albums, I mean, didn't blow up like Joey thought they were going to blow up, he blamed Tommy. Tommy's got to pay. And so there was this tension. His esteem for Tommy took a dive when those
wow.
albums didn't hit his expectation, and he was basically not vibing well with Tommy. And Tommy's like, "Yeah, you know what? You don't want me around anyways. I'd rather be staying at home recording." I he
Yeah, I
kind
don't
of
want to walk around with you.
Yeah, he kind of became the drummer as a favor for them because they couldn't
Well,
find
yeah,
a drum.
yeah, that's
And
the whole reason Dee Dee counts it off because
yeah,
Tommy couldn't quite,
right. And Dee Dee was the original drummer. They were a power trio.
yeah,
Not
uh,
Dee Dee,
Joey.
Joey.
Yeah.
Anyways, so first you look at the personnel on this album. The first thing you notice, you got Marky Ramone, who was Mark Bell. He was in Richard Hell and the Voidoids. He was in Television. Um,
He was in Dust.
yeah, and he joins. I Sound wise, he's my favorite Ramones drummer. He's just fucking
Oh,
solid.
yeah, he hits the shit out of everything.
Yeah, but you got those four: Joey, Johnny, Dee Dee, and Marky, and then you've got all these extra musicians that Phil Spector brings in.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Phil Spector, I really think songs. Now, this is a great song. Do you remember Rock and Roll Radio? But I think Phil Spector kind of influences that song,
mhm.
and then has them cover a Ronettes tune, so that way Phil can make money on even
Oh,
making money as
probably.
the producer.
Yeah, yeah.
The
So
whole thing.
he's got one, two, three additional guitar players, a pianist, organist, a saxophone player, an additional percussion, additional drums. Um, it's just it's overproduced, and it's
Yeah.
overproduced old school style where you get backing musicians and all kinds of stuff. It's not like slick crap like Taylor Swift or whatever, but it's still overproduced. And this is going to be the first album I don't read off all the songs because it's not back to back killer.
Well,
But
but the songs that jump out for me is, do you remember Rock and Roll Radio?
yeah,
Danny Says, Chinese Rock, and Chinese Rock. There's a great version that Richard Hell and the Voidoids do, but
and
Chinese Rock,
I think the Heartbreakers with Johnny Thunders
yeah, yeah,
played that too.
that's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah, their version. That's the one I
yeah,
know. But Rock and Roll High School's on here, and
yeah.
it's
And that's
that's
about it.
but just that is reason enough to have the album, because
Oh yeah,
the other songs of the Ramones are not great, but they're far better
still the Ramones.
most of the
Yeah,
shit from 1980. Um,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. So this is so Joey, you can imagine Joey had big expectations at first, and now that he's replacing Tommy as producer with the legendary Phil Spector, you can imagine where his expectations are with this one. Oh, this is going to be the million,
Oh
the
yeah,
art.
River Live. But Phil Spector was so full of himself and psychotic. Phil Spector would go on to murder the real hot blonde that's in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Uh, there's a doctor scene where they go on a field trip or something, and
Mhm.
she's this blonde bimbo there. Um, she ends up on the wrong end of a gun in Phil Spector's foyer.
Yeah, he's definitely a nut,
And
without a
it
doubt.
just sucks.
Yeah.
I feel like he um, added to, most bands as they go along. There's friction at some point, and things start to pull away or whatever. But I know just for the cover of End of the Century, here they are all in bright colored shirts and no leather jackets,
Yeah,
and
yeah. With a
Johnny
red background, it's just
Johnny
not.
looks fucking miserable on the cover.
Yeah.
Um, it really, I feel his pain there.
Who
Um,
looks miserable on the cover?
Johnny,
Yeah, yeah.
he's
And
right in front and just looks fucking pissed. The other guys are just, hey, here we
yeah.
are. Phil,
Apparently Johnny didn't end up getting along with Phil Spector. And
well, I don't
probably him
know.
trying to talk Joey into a solo career didn't help.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I'm in a band and you're trying to woo my lead singer away. I'd be,
Yeah,
that's fighting words there, man.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so, even though the other albums just riding the top of the wave. End of the Century's not it's not too much of a punch in the head or anything. There's some good songs on there.
Yeah, I've got my Ramones playlist has every song from every album.
Yeah,
And that's how I know,
yeah,
which albums are more solid than the others, but it's still all the Ramones and I listen to all of it. But
yeah, yeah.
when
um
um
for the I Don't Care playlist, I tried to really uh it's heavy on those first four albums, and then
more
I start
selective.
getting more selective. But
Yeah.
every album's represented
Yeah.
all the way up.
Yeah. It's worth checking them all out. Next album
Well,
came out
hang
in
on,
19.
hang on. But right around 1980, Roger Corman gets them
Oh,
into a
we got to
movie,
talk about the movie. Yeah.
and Rock and Roll High School is just a great vehicle for the Ramones. They don't compromise their image at all. They're in some like a dream sequence with PJ Souls, um, where she's fantasizing. She's getting high, laying on her bed, and she's fantasizing that the Ramones come into her bedroom and they're hanging out playing. Um, I believe um, "I Want You Around." Um, and Joey's singing to her and stuff, and then Dee Dee's in the shower playing the bass. So it's just funny, but
It's yeah, my impression of it when I saw it was one of the most incredibly stupid B movies I've ever seen in my life.
oh really?
But
I
it's,
love it.
it's yeah, no, I love it too. But it is incredibly, don't go see this expecting to see Hard Day's Night.
No, no,
Hard Day's Night is an amazing work of art.
yeah,
Richard Lester's direction and the
yeah.
spontaneity of those cats. It's
No,
beautifully photographed. This is nothing like Hard Day's Night. This
no,
is
this is more like Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
but not
has
as good.
a younger brother.
Yeah,
But
it's not as good as Fast Times at Ridgemont High either. It's a
there's some
Roger Corman
kooky,
B movie,
yeah,
and it's incredibly stupid, but it's fun, and it's the Ramones, and that's all I got.
yeah. And the Ramones play. They've got some concert footage.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a great midnight movie. I can remember going to see um, Rock and Roll High School as a midnight movie,
Uh-huh.
and that was great. Because at the time you didn't see the Ramones. I had not seen them live yet, and so
Yeah.
to see that movie was a great way to see them. And
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
PJ Souls is very sexy in that.
Yeah.
What's funny in the background, I noticed Melanie Chardoff is in it. She's in the background as a dancer who would go on to be in one of the cast of Fridays,
Well, there you go.
which became an early vehicle for the guy that went on to be Kramer. Forget
Oh
his name.
yeah, yeah. What's his name was in that?
Yeah.
Um, uh, and if you can find Andy Kaufman's appearances on Fridays, you got to check
Yeah.
it out. That's classic shit. We got to
Yeah.
do it. We're gonna do an Andy Kaufman episode at
Yeah.
some point.
There's
That's a weirdo that makes Crispin Glover look like Mr. Rogers.
There's a DVD of the best of Fridays. It's a 2 disc set, and there's
Yeah.
some great skits on there.
Not to mention Kiss when the Elder came out, playing their weird ass Elder songs on
Yeah,
Fridays.
on
Yeah.
Fridays. Yeah.
I saw that live. I knew.
I did too.
I knew. Oh my God, Kiss is going to be on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Kiss again. All right. So, anything else before we move on to Pleasant Dreams?
No.
Okay. So, Pleasant Dreams comes out in '81. I lied. This will be the last album where I read off every track because this is also back-to-back classic.
I think this was a return to form for them. Like they wanted
Yeah.
to, you know.
The whole attempt to do something different with Phil Spector didn't quite do what they wanted. Some people think this album has a little bit too much of a pop sound. This was one of my first Ramones albums, and I think it's back to back solid. They really did come back to being the Ramones,
Yeah.
and just back to their basic sound. I'm gonna read off the tracks here. They're all classic. They're all worth checking out. We Want the Airwaves. All's Quiet on the Eastern Front. KKK Took My Baby Away.
That's
Don't
a
Go.
classic. That is epic right there.
We'll talk about what that's about too. Don't Go. You Sound Like You're Sick. It's Not My Place in the 9 to 5 World. I was singing this on the highway driving to work this morning. This whole
Yeah,
album.
it's funny and that song is very commercial to me, but I love it. I love this whole album.
No, it's not my place in the 9 to 5 world. I Can't Get You Out of My Mind. She's a Sensation. 7-Eleven. You Didn't Mean Anything to Me. Sleeping Troubles. This Business Is Killing Me. Sitting in My Room. Another boredom song. Touring. just classic, back-to-back classic songs. Even the pop songs on here, see, She's a Sensation and 7-Eleven are basically pop type songs, but it's kind of pop in the way that Shattered by the Rolling Stones was pop. It's like this catchy tune they're hoping to get on the radio,
I
but
would
it's
say
not.
Shattered. What's funny? You mentioned Some Girls. That's their punk album. I
Oh
think
yeah, it's very inspired by punk.
they're
It
very
is.
inspired
Yeah,
by the New York punk scene.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so, anyways, classic album, back to back, great stuff. Um, KKK Took My Baby Away. A lot of people think that's Joey writing about the fact that Johnny had recently stolen his girlfriend Linda, who ends up marrying Johnny, and she's Linda Ramone. Basically, she's the heir to Johnny's whatever fortune he had at this point. But it seemed like it was true love between Johnny and Linda. But it's unfortunate because Joey was totally head over heels for her, and she was dating Joey, and then Johnny basically took her away. So then Joey wrote
Yeah,
a song called
this is a
KKK.
really crazy part of the Ramones history where Joey's girlfriend leaves him, and then it's not like an ex girlfriend. She's in your rearview mirror, and you can go on with your life. No, she's now part of the family uh,
Yeah.
with Johnny, and Joey gets to see her all the time. That's
And
got to just
she
a
would be in
constant
the
kick
she'd
in
be
the
in the she'd be in the tour bus, and like Joey's sitting up in the passenger seat up front before before Joey and Linda broke up, and Linda would be in the back seat holding hands with Johnny because Joey's not looking. It's that kind of
It's just,
situation.
and then they just don't speak for years,
Yeah,
but
they
the
never
tension
pretty much
somehow
never
keeps
spoke
them
again.
together. It's
They toured for another goddamn another
15
uh
years,
15 years after this, and they just didn't talk.
Didn't talk. And when Joey, again, so Joey gets lymphoma and dies April 15th of '01. And so he had lymphoma cancer. He dies at 49 years old. You and I are both older than Joey Ramone.
Oh, don't
Um,
jinx it.
no, no. But Joey, when he was sick, they said, "Hey, Johnny, are you gonna go see Joey in the hospital?" And Johnny's like, we haven't talked in 15 years.
Why
Why
would I?
why would I go talk to him now? And I'm like,
Yeah,
God damn, bro, that's the singer of your band. He's part of the reason that you have $1 million.
yeah, I
And
know.
so Johnny dies of prostate cancer in '04. So just 3 years later, Johnny dies at 55 years old. Now Dee Dee died in '02, right after Joey. He was 50 years old of a heroin overdose. And then Tommy outlives everyone, dies July 11th of 2014 of bile duct cancer. So cancer hit three members
Hmm.
of the Ramones. And
Yeah,
had Dee Dee not died of heroin, he might have got cancer too. Who knows?
yeah.
But
I don't know if this story is true or not, but back when I was a teenager, I knew somebody who this is one of those friend of a friend's, had a friend who lived in New York, and he lived in the apartment above Johnny Ramone. And Johnny Ramone used to always bang on his door and tell him to turn his music down. And he was
that's,
like,
fuck you, Johnny.
he was
Um,
like, "You're in the Ramones, and you're telling
yeah,
me to turn my music down." It's fucking
that
hilarious.
is that's
But
interesting.
I, I imagine you're on tour most of your life, and it's not like Metallica where you've got a personal masseuse and a physical therapist to tune
Sure,
you up before the
sure, yeah.
show. You're eating gourmet, healthy, macrobiotic food all the time. The Ramones were probably eating crystal burgers
Oh
and
yeah, they were on the
Twinkies
fly. You
and
Twinkies.
Living in New York, breathing all that air, and it's I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'd be like,
totally
hey,
shocked.
hey, Johnny, buy a house and get out of my building. Okay, I'm playing. You know,
I'm turning my motorhead back up, and I'm
oh,
gonna tell Lemmy
yeah,
when I see him you didn't
yeah,
like
I'm
hearing him.
fucking overkill right now, dude.
But so Pleasant Dreams really is a return to form, in my opinion. The documentary Ramones, a true story. That there's some conflicting opinions about it in there, but uh, I think it's fucking stellar. Um,
And the thing about
Anything else to say about it?
All these Ramones albums is you go back to them and they're great. So
Yeah.
just like Motorhead's Iron Fist not being received well, it's a fucking great album, you
Yeah,
know.
they were disappointed with one of the best albums ever recorded in the history of mankind. Iron Fist is amazing,
Yeah,
as is Pleasant Dreams, same thing.
yeah, yeah,
So
and almost the same years. You know,
yeah. Um so next album is Subterranean Jungle. This one comes out in 83. This is where they start to become uneven again. I think it's got some great fucking tunes on it. Uh there's apparently a lot of disputes between the band members during this time. Joey and Marky were heavy alcoholics. They both eventually got sober, but not during this period. So before that, um, I'll just rattle off the tracks I like, and then Silky, you can take it away. But a little bit of soul is fucking awesome.
that's a cover tune. That's another great song.
Yeah,
Ano-
it's all.
Another
It's,
another good window into what they listen to coming up. You know, so
yeah.
it's good shit.
Psychotherapy is fucking killer. That's one of their best songs ever.
Yeah.
Time Has Come Today. They do a killer version of that. Every time I eat vegetables, it makes me think of you. It's about this, he had this girlfriend who's in a mental institution. She's a vegetable now. Fucking
Yeah.
another just hilarious Joey Ramone song.
Oh yeah.
And that's about it. What do you think?
Outsider is a must on this
Oh yeah.
record.
Outsider's a good one. Yeah.
I've always related to Outsider. I can be the center of attention. I can hold court and have a whole room full of people laughing. But so many times I identify with this song, I just don't feel included. I will hang back. I'll hang off to the side. If I
This
see
is
my moment, I'm going to jump in with both feet and go all the way through the ice. But
this is why you and I are friends. I went to the company Christmas party I work at last week, and I was the fucking riot life of the party. We
mhm,
had this gift exchange. I'm just cracking jokes. I'm getting up.
riffing,
I'm making the whole room laugh. I
riffing.
don't like I don't like going to these fucking things.
Right, right. Yeah, but
And
you're riffing. You're
yeah,
riffing.
I was riffing and making everybody laugh, but I
Right.
I went to that because my wife insisted. I usually don't go to company socialize. I consider it forced socializing with people who you work with people. Some of them you like, some of them you don't.
Mhm,
I I'm with them 9 to 5. That's enough.
mhm.
I don't work after 5:30, so I'm not going to the what you call it. And my wife was like, "It's the Christmas party. You have to go." And then I go, and I was the MC for the whole thing, basically,
That's
just
good.
you
I
know,
love, and
spontaneously. Same
I've
personality, you
I've
know.
come away from things like that where weeks later, a year later, dude, you killed. You
Yeah.
should do stand up. How many times have you heard that? You should do
Oh
stand up.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And then I immediately, anytime I hear stand up, to this day, I think of you and I doing stand up at the White Dot
Okay,
and
we have to tell that story. Let's
fleeing for
pause the
our
Ramones
lives out the
episode.
back door.
Here's what happened. We're pausing the Ramones episode for a second. So we knew this cat in Atlanta named Deacon Lunchbox. Look him up if you didn't know him. Legendary guy. He was this big, burly Yosemite Sam looking motherfucker, and he was a poet. And he would yell out his poetry while he was banging on steel oil barrels with a baseball bat or whatever. I think he had hammers. He's banging
Yeah,
on
on
these
a
oil barrels with hammers.
well, it was a bomb.
Yeah,
a big
Oh,
shell.
that's right. It was like a old, yeah, bombshell, and he had poems like, "I got a hole in my couch and I named her Wanda,"
Yeah.
stuff like that. And so, um,
He gives us a shot to do a open mic night.
open mic night, and we stayed up till 3 in the morning writing this skit, a
Well,
song called.
we kind of had a whole routine of some other stuff, sitting in a chair like we're driving, all kind of
Yeah,
bullshit.
all kinds of stuff. But it started off with this song, "Leafy, Leafy, Leafy Head of Cabbage."
Yeah, and just horrific.
At
Um,
three, no, we got to tell the story. That's what makes this podcast different. So at 3 in the morning, at 3 in the morning, we write this song. It's leafy, 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 leafy,
oh, you're gonna
leafy,
sing it.
leafy, 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 head of cabbage. And we go up
Crickets.
on this, we go to this open mic night, and there's all these killer bands playing. There was this Michelle Malone and Drag the River, which was
Uh-huh.
amazing Faces style rock and roll band led by this killer singer chick. I Rock and the Funk Coalition, which was like this James Brown kind of act. We're sitting in a booth while like Michelle Malone's playing, and this angry, drunk Vietnam vet starts talking to us. You remember that?
I do. But we're realizing this is not gonna go down
Well,
well.
we don't know quite yet. He's like talking to us and telling us how he did 2 tours in Nam and all that, and kind of cornering us, talking kind of aggressively. And then Deacon Lunchbox comes out. One band's done. I Rock and the Funk Coalition are setting up, and he goes, "All right, in between bands, we're going to bring on the comedians." The whole crowd starts booing,
Immediately booing. Yeah.
and the guy looks at us and he goes, "Well, y'all better be good."
Y'all better be funny, god damn it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we're saying excuse me to get past these people who are booing so we can get up on the
Yeah,
stage.
I can still remember some guy leaning forward and like veins popping out as he's screaming, fuck you or something. And excuse me, you know,
Dude, I got to get past you so I can get up there so you can yell
yeah.
directly at me.
Yeah. So
And so
you can see who you're yelling at.
we get up on stage, we start singing this leafy, leafy head of cabbage thing, and it got worse. People are just screaming and yelling at us. And at some point, we both look at each other, and we had this little hand signal thing we were going to
And
do
we
if it
did.
went, and we fucking ran out straight out the back door.
Yeah.
And that was
Later. I remember Deacon saying, y'all killed it, even though they were booing, you stayed up there and it took a lot of balls, and it was a great compliment from him.
and we went back and we did a couple more of his open mic nights, and we were actually just as bizarre but funnier.
Yeah, I'd
We
say
are
our thing at the Cotton Club was pretty good.
Yeah, we had this thing at the Cotton Club where we were running around to "I'm So Glad" by Cream, and rubbing pizza all over ourselves. It really freaked people out. And then the one at the point where we're singing "God Save
Oh
the
no,
Queen" while we
we
throw
threw
green
green
beans.
beans at everybody. Yeah,
We threw green beans at the audience.
we
That was
trashed that
hilarious.
place. That was fucking great.
We were wearing trash bags, singing "God Save the Queen," throwing green beans at the audience. That
Whipping them
fucking
out,
rocked.
just huge unpeeled green beans. Anyway,
Anyways, there you have it. Back to
back
the Ramones.
back to that album. A B side of Subterranean Jungle, they cover a little bit of soul, which was cool. One of my favorite Ramones songs is called Indian Giver, and it's originally by 1910 Fruit Gum Company. Never listened to that band, but
Yeah.
Indian Giver is on their album from 1969. Um, and I love that song. And the Ramones just crushed that tune. And that's on Ramones Mania, which was a great collection up at that point when it came out. It had all the good tracks from all those albums.
I'm
and
gonna
that's
find Ramones Mania and add that to my Ramones playlist right now, or
yeah.
I'm gonna
Well,
just email
it's
myself to
yeah.
remember
I
to do
mean,
it.
look at the songs because you've got everything.
I know, but I want those B-side tracks. I
Yeah,
don't have Indian Giver on my playlist.
Indian Givers.
Yeah,
Well, it's on the playlist that I made.
there you go. That'll be on
Um,
there too.
yeah.
Anything
Um,
else about Subterranean Jungle before
no,
we move
I
on?
know this was more in the vein of what Johnny Ramone wanted to do, sound wise.
Mm,
Um, but there's a bunch of covers on here. Time Has Come Today, a little bit of soul, and Indian Giver, even though I don't think it's on the actual album. But they were, I think they were trying to just fill the album out, and
yeah.
but everybody steps up. Dee Dee, Joey, everybody's writing songs. So
Mm. All right, so let's move on to "Too Tough to Die." One of the best Ramones album covers,
well,
actually. There's
before you go on with that, at
yeah,
this point, Marky is kicked out of the band due to alcohol. Um, he does come back in '87 to finish out to '96. He comes back clean and sober, but Marky was asked to leave, and they bring in Richie Ramone. Um,
aka Richard Reinhardt.
yeah, and he was with them from '83 to '87. But what's interesting is he was replaced by Blondie's drummer Clem Burke, and he was when he was with the Ramones, he was rechristened Elvis Ramone. But
He played,
he played 2 shows,
yeah, and
and then
the
he's
reason they
kicked out.
called him Elvis Ramone is because they thought Clemmy Ramone sounded stupid. I think Clemmy Ramone would have been fucking hilarious
Oh, Clem
because
Ramone.
it's
Yeah,
Clem Burke from Blondie.
yeah, yeah,
And I think Clemmy Ramone would have been hilarious, but they went with Elvis Ramone for his
yeah.
2 shows. Yeah. But
So yeah, Too Tough to Die, '84.
yeah, so now you got Richie Ramone on drums. Um Too Tough to Die is another one of those where you got some great songs like Mama's Boy.
Oh,
Um
Mama's Boy is phenomenal.
yeah,
Howlin' at the Moon and Warthog, that was the single
Warthog Warthog's one of the best Ramone songs of all time. And
ever.
it's got Dee Dee singing it,
Yeah,
and it's just killer. And
yeah,
but then you've got stuff like Planet Earth 1988 and Humankind that's just
man.
I don't even like Howling at the Moon, to tell you the truth. Sha
Oh, I
la
like that song.
la la. It's not
Yeah,
my
but
not my bag.
like I said, it's that catchy stuff that they did, but they
I
keep the
I
leather
just
jacket on.
I don't think they did it well in that case. But anyways, it's just okay for us to disagree. You
Oh
check it
yeah,
out, people, and decide for yourselves.
yeah.
But it,
That was the lead off single, and then the B
yeah.
side was Warthog. This had Durango '95 was a good under a minute instrument. I always put Durango '95 as like an intro to Warthog.
Mhm.
Um,
It's interesting too, because on this album is where Joey Ramone starts adopting a little bit more of a growly vocal style.
yeah,
If you listen to Mama's Boy, he didn't do a lot of that before, but he brings this kind of vibe back throughout the rest of their albums. This growly Mama, 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 Mama's Boy.
yeah,
It's
and
just
then
a
but then
little
he
less
does
sing
this
song.
when he says "Mama's Boy." Then he goes, ugh,
Yeah,
ugh, like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
beating the
It's a
shit out of this kid.
it's a
Um,
great
uh,
song. Mama's Boy and Warthog are two of their most badass songs,
yeah.
I have to say.
Danger Zone's okay. Daytime Dilemmas is another. There, this is where they're trying. This is almost 4.5 minutes long. I really think they're still trying to get something on the radio to you know
Yeah,
and
yeah, they're still kind of trying. We'll do a. There's some synthesizer on here that I'm not too
yeah,
fond of.
and Richie Ramone actually has a writing credit for Humankind. I realize now why I don't like that song. But
Oh, there you go.
their B side, so the expanded version of this album in 2002, they do a great cover of Street Fighting Man.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's a good one.
so
You had some interesting cats contributing to this. You had Walter Lohr from the Heartbreakers. He was the
Mhm.
other guitar player aside from Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers. You had Jerry Harrison from the Talking Heads playing some of that synthesizer that I didn't like. Um, so you know you had some interesting cats dropping in, but
Mm.
yeah, Street Fighting Man, the B side is really good. There's some good shit in here. I've got all this stuff still on my Ramones playlist. You know, I kind of when I marathon the Ramones, there's a period where you know I'll kind of turn the volume down a little bit. It's in the background while I'm working or whatever. Warthog comes on, I'll crank it up. You know, but
Yeah.
it's still the Ramones. It is what it is. Anything else you have to say about Subterranean Jungle? I mean, Too Tough to Die.
Yeah, no, Animal Boy back. So Too Tough to Die was actually a hard when you were buying CDs in the '90s, and I worked at Tower Records. Too Tough to
Mhm.
Die was a tough album to track down.
Really
It took me,
interesting.
yeah. I whatever label they were on or whatever, like Too Tough to Die and Animal Boy were just not easily
Found.
instantly found.
Yeah. So, kids, there was a time when you couldn't stream everything. You had to
No,
physically own a copy.
you had to look for shit, and I
Yeah.
believe my copies of Too Tough to Die and Animal Boy were like on a German label or something. I just remember there being um, something else. I don't recall now what it was, but um,
So, Animal Boy is another one of those. I don't think it has any song that's as strong as Warthog or Mama's Boy. Somebody put something in my drink. That's
that's
Richie.
that's the big. That was a double A side.
Yeah,
Somebody put something in my drink is definitely the big one off of this record.
that's Richie Ramone writing that, and it
Mhm.
sounds like a Joey Ramone song. That's a
Totally.
total kind of lyric that Joey would write.
Yeah.
Um,
Bonzo Goes to Bitburg and Dangers of Love. That was the lead off single. I don't mind either one of those. And somebody put something in my drink is epic.
yeah,
Um, and then Something to Believe in. I always like that song. And Animal Boy, of course. But that's really it.
yeah. Crummy stuff is lyrically lacking a little bit, but it's Ramone's title for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Eat That
it's
Rat was funny, and then Hair of the Dog. I remember thinking it was going to be the Nazareth song, and it's a Joey Ramone tune.
yeah, it's him singing about being hungover. So
Yeah,
so I don't know. I mean, it's not the best album. It's got some decent stuff on it. Um,
but
Richie
see, here's
Ramone,
the pattern. Here's the pattern all the way back
mhm,
to end of the century. You're going to get about 3 to 5 songs that are just worth having, and then the other
mhm.
ones are just okay. But again, it's the Ramones.
Except for Pleasant Dreams, which I think is fucking solid all the way through.
Yeah,
But
that's a
yeah,
good one. And I
yeah.
like the next one, Halfway to Sanity. I had this cassette, played the shit out of it all the time.
Well,
I
let's
want
take
to
a
live,
look at. Oh,
Bop Till
Bop
You
Till You
Drop,
Drop was good. Yeah, yeah.
Weasel Face, Go Little Camaro Go. I always thought that might be a cover, but that was Dee Dee Ramone.
Yeah.
Great tune.
Well,
Uh,
you cover enough of these songs, you learn how to write them yourself. You
yeah,
know.
right, exactly. Worm Man was funny. Um, I'm Not Jesus. I like that one, but yeah,
So, so
basically
you
second
know,
lawn of this again. 5 6 songs, and
yeah, another kind of hit or miss kind of thing. Richie Ramone's last album. Um, I remember some documentary. It might be the End of the Century, which is a great Ramones documentary. I'll drop that in the click pick too. But I think it might have been in that one, or it might have been in that book that you're reading that the tour manager wrote.
hmm
Um, what's the title of that book? Do you have it on your? Can you bring it up?
yeah, I'll tell you. So
Okay.
real quick, Indian Giver, it ends up being the B side on here. Is the B side of A Real Cool Time,
Mhm.
but they were messing around with it on the album before.
Yeah. So
So,
what's the
or
title of
actually
that book?
two albums ago, because I don't know when Too Tough to Die is when Indian Giver was. But yeah, so let me look up on my Kindle here. On the Road with the Ramones.
Yeah, killer book. We'll drop it in the clickbait. I think it might have been in that book. It's either that or Into the Century. They're talking about why Richie left, and there's basically financial conflicts with Johnny, but Richie was to the point where they had money like royalties they owed him, and
Oh yeah, for the T-shirts.
he wouldn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
He fought with them about money, but when he left the band, he was so pissed off. Even when they were trying to contact him to give him a check for something, he
Oh
wouldn't even
really?
answer the phone. Yeah, he was just
Wow.
done. He was through with them. He didn't even want their money anymore. He was so pissed off. And so that's where Clem Burke jumps in for a little bit, a couple shows. He should have been called Clemmy Ramone, but they went with Elvis Ramone. And then Marky comes back, solid. He's kind of like the Mickey D of the Ramones. Mickey D was just the solid, reliable drummer for Motorhead, and Marky was kind of that for the Ramones. You just got to come back to what's solid and reliable.
Yeah.
So, anything else about that album before we talk about Brain Drain?
No, and Brain Drain was really, for me, is where it's just uh you're almost buying the album because it's the Ramones. But and I did see them all through the 90s. I saw them every time they came to like Masquerade or anywhere. um you had to go see them. But apart from Pet Cemetery, Brain Drain is not one that I immediately think of.
Yeah, that Merry Christmas, I Don't Want to Fight Tonight has kind of
Yeah, I
become a
have.
classic.
Yeah,
I've got a punk and rock and hip hop Christmas playlist, and that's definitely on there. But you're right, it's not the strongest of albums. Uh, we got Marky back in the band. It is one of the producers. Interestingly enough, is one of my favorite musicians. This bass player cat named Bill Laswell, who produced Orgasmatron by Motorhead. Um,
yeah,
if you check out Bill Laswell's dub reggae stuff, he does all kinds of jazz and experimental stuff. But his any Bill Laswell album that has the word dub in the title is just going to be awesome for that
yeah,
genre of music. It's killer. But he's one of the producers on here. Didn't help when the songwriting's not there. The songwriting's just not there. Probably one of the weakest Ramones albums. Would you agree?
yeah. I'm looking at just the songs. I Believe in Miracles. I actually
Yeah,
liked that one a lot.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then really, Palisades Park, another cover song. I always, again, found it humorous, the covers that they did. And
Mhm.
Palisades Park is one. So I go from I Believe in Miracles, Palisade Park, Don't Bust My Chops is kind of funny. Pet Cemetery, definitely. And then Merry Christmas, I Don't Want to Fight Tonight. That's really it.
Yeah.
Um,
So a handful of songs. I probably
yeah.
like less of those than you do, but
Yeah.
it's always 3 to 5 songs on these albums.
And for me, I make the comparison lightly to Motorhead's later albums, where uh, it's Motorhead, and I love Motorhead. Nothing like epically jumps out the way the earlier Motorhead albums are, but it's Motorhead. And what's wrong with
I
you
think
know?
there's a big difference though because I think Motorhead there was never any shitty pop ballads, and the Ramones they're hitting you with some shitty pop ballads. Motorhead's always going to be solid back to back rock and roll. There's a
Yeah,
couple times that they try to sell out a couple songs, and even those are interesting.
yeah,
So
but I think with the later Motorheads, it's just more of the same, and you're like, okay. But again, it's the whole bottle of whiskey, and
I've never said to
you're gonna
myself,
rock it.
okay, when I put on a Motorhead album. That's never
Just
happened.
those later Motorheads don't grab me the way the earlier ones
Of
did.
course not. It's not Ace of Spades. It's not Iron Fist, but it's still
And it's it, for
solid.
me, it's hard with some of the Lemmy stuff, he just sounds tired
Yeah, towards the
towards
end.
the end, and it
Yeah.
it hurts because I hate that he's gone. Um,
Yeah, that sucks.
yeah.
It really does. All
So
right.
Mondo Bizarro,
Yeah, so basically Dee Dee leaves after the previous album.
yeah,
Um for because you know what? I'm gonna link the Dee Dee Ramone hip hop album in the homepage because you have to hear it. It's fucking hilarious.
yeah.
But basically
King Didi or what is
Dee
it?
Dee King. Dee
Didi
Dee
King.
King. And so Dee Dee Ramone had gotten into Run DMC, just like the Beastie Boys, but he didn't have the rap talent that the Beastie Boys had. And apparently, um, leading up to when he left the band, he was just wearing Adidas jumpsuits all the time and gold chains, listening to a lot of rap music. And then he records this album as Dee Dee King. That's his rap name.
He also wrote a book.
I haven't read his books, but the album is one of the most unintentionally funny, hilarious, bad albums you'll hear in your life.
Yeah.
Just hearing Dee Dee Ramone rapping about sucker MCs when he's the sucker MC is just
Yeah.
hilarious. I mean, it's really bad to the point where you got to listen to it. We'll put it in the click pit.
Well, and
Um,
it's late in the rap game. It's
yeah,
1989, so it's like, dude, what are you doing? What are you
right.
doing?
It's terrible. So he leaves to start a rap career, and he's a Dee Dee Ramone's an eccentric individualist, no doubt about it. And I'm sure he was just tired of Johnny telling him what to do. He's tired of fucking microphone hitting his teeth. It was like
Oh, and tired of touring. 1,000 shows a year is
tired of touring.
that's
He said when he get up on stage, he was just counting the minutes till it was over.
yeah,
And
that's rough, man.
so he bails. They bring in some fresh blood with a ex-military cat, CJ Ramone, and
I
he
think he
kicks
was
this
a Marine.
he kicks this band in the ass, and they drop a pretty solid album, in my opinion, with
Yeah,
Mondo Bizarro.
they do a cover of the Spider-Man theme.
Yeah,
That was
you got
great.
censorship, which is a great title and song. You got The Job That Ate My Brain, a little bit of going back to Not My Place in the 9 to 5 world. Great fucking tune written by Marky and a co-writer.
Yeah.
Poison Heart's a little too poppy
Poison
for me.
Yeah,
uh,
that was the lead-off single, Poison Heart.
yeah, Slim trying to get on the radio.
Yeah.
um,
I like
uh,
Strength to Endure a lot. That was great.
and then you've got an amazing
CJ's
killer cover of Take It As It Comes.
Yeah.
Them just basically, if the Stooges ever did a Doors cover, it would have sounded like this. It's just a
Yeah.
really and this again, this is Joey with his growly voice. Take
Mhm.
it as it comes, just
Yeah.
fucking killer.
Yeah.
Cabby's on crack is hilarious.
Yeah.
It's a
Heidi is the
good.
head case. I like that one.
Yeah, it's another Susie as a headbanger, Sheena as a punk rocker kind of
And
song.
they do touring again.
And then you've got the bonus track, them doing the Spider-Man theme, which is fucking awesome. I remember when this album came out, you're like, check it out, Ramones doing Spider-Man.
Yeah, it blew me away.
It's a good, solid fucking album. It really
Yeah.
is. It's not quite up there with Pleasant Dreams, but it's pretty damn
Yeah.
close.
Um,
CJ Ramone didn't write any of this, but he kicked some there was some energy back in the band.
yeah, and he sings Strength to Endure.
There you
Uh,
go.
and I thought CJ had a good singing voice, and
Yeah.
Dee
His
Dee,
solo CJ
even though he left the band, contributes quite a few songs to this
Yeah,
album.
he kept contributing songs. And CJ Ramone, just as a side note, look him up on Spotify, make a playlist. He's another one of those cats like Izzy Stradlin, where it
Yeah, he's
seems
got
like a side man. He's got solid albums. I 3, 4, 5 solid albums. I forget, but I listened to them and it was just back to back. It's Ramones style music. He uses the Ramones logo, font for his CJ Ramone.
Yeah,
But
and
he just kills it.
he's like took his money, works on motorcycles, has his bands.
Yeah,
He's done a couple different bands, and he's just a fucking solid cat.
stand up cat.
Mhm.
There's a story about after he joins the band, they're on their way to yet another gig. Joey Ramone is sick as a dog with the flu or something even worse. I don't know, just dying. And CJ's talking to Joey, going, "Hey man, just tell Johnny you can't do the gig." And Joey's like, "I can't do that. It's not worth it." And Johnny finds out about this and takes CJ aside and says, "Don't you ever interfere with our business again. You will shut up and do as you're told."
Yeah,
that's
that's rough. That's
that's how Johnny
I
ran the
would
business.
just lay down and die. I would never. Johnny Ramone is one of my idols. It would be really hard to take
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And I remember, and I think it's into the century. CJ Ramone. They ask him about Johnny Ramone, and he says, "I respect him, but I don't like. I didn't like. I don't like him."
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Uh,
but anyways, solid fucking album. Mondo Bizarro is a great album. Anything else you want to say about this before we
no,
move on to the killer cover album,
no.
Acid Eaters?
Acid Eaters is a solid album. I mean, that's the one. Late in your career, you put something out like this, you've still got it. Um, this was released in '93. It was again like the end of their career. Um, but it's all those garage rock bands, and I've been harping on this from the first album. Just the bands they choose, it's just so cool. But you got Journey to the Center of the Mind, Substitute, Out of Time, another Stones cover, um, Shape of Things to Come, um, Somebody to Love. Uh, when I was young. That's one of my favorite Animals tunes, and they cover that. 7 and 7 is the best song by Love. Um, just great tune. Um, then they do a Dylan cover, My Back Pages. Can't Seem to Make You Mine. The Seeds have a great tune, Pushing Too Hard. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
as
Pushing to that's
yeah,
a total proto punk, pre punk
Yeah,
song for
yeah,
sure.
I love that tune, and a great guitar riff in the Seeds in that "Pushing Too Hard." They really rip it, very jangly, almost like when the Birds are really riffing.
I think Pushing Too Hard sounds a lot like Love. Love was
Yeah,
what 7 and 7 is very similar vibe.
yeah.
Um,
I know the Doors. Jim Morrison early on was like, if we could just be as big as Love, uh,
yeah,
I'll be happy. And it's like,
yeah,
huh? Who?
that's funny.
Uh,
Seven and
then they
seven
do. Have
is
you
that's
ever
their
seen the
legacy.
rain? CCR.
Yeah.
Uh,
Have you ever seen the rain?
a great cover by the Trogs or of the Trogs. I Can't Control Myself, and then Surf City by Jan and Dean. And then the bonus track, if you got the Japanese version, which I spent the money on, you get Surfing Safari, Beach
Yeah,
Boys.
that's on Spotify. Yeah, it's and that's just a solid cover album. I guess that's another one we read all the track listings to because every album is good. I mean, every song is good. They didn't write any of it, but they cover it and they make it theirs. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if that killer cover of Shape of Things and the killer cover of Street Fighting Man didn't get them thinking. People probably not Shape of Things. Take It As It Comes.
Hmm.
Take It As It Comes and Street Fighting Man they'd covered on previous albums or B sides,
Yeah.
and I'm sure people came to them and said, "Those covers are amazing. You guys should do a cover album," and they did. And in my opinion, they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never read anything, but I'm sure they might have owed two more albums or something. And hey, let's just do a cover album. We're tired.
Yeah,
But who knows?
yeah, but they knocked it out. It
Yeah.
was a good album.
And
Anything about that before we move on to the
no,
last one?
the
Adios
final
Amigos?
the final one, Adios Amigos, it was tough. Ramones, I would say in 90 94, 93, 94, I personally always expected uh, a Ramones album, a Metallica album, and a Motorhead album. And
Yeah.
you just, kind of looked forward to the next, And so when you started hearing rumors that the Ramones were packing it in, you're like, no, you know, that can't be, and Adios Amigos comes out. I'd already started hearing little rumors, and their new album's called Adios Amigos, and you're going, oh my God. So
And the
it was
thing is,
bittersweet. It was hard.
what else was happening at this time was a band called Green Day with a, taking a very similar sound and making cajillions of dollars. And they commented on that. They're like, look, man, we've been doing this forever. We're still playing clubs, and this band comes out and they're making cajillions of dollars. And
Yeah.
and they said, and this is parallel with Johnny. He's getting to where he's got around $1 million saved up. He's like, if this album doesn't take off, we're done.
Mhm.
And they literally said that when it came out. This is the only time I saw them was on this tour. You and I went to Masquerade Music Park, saw them there. Um, and they came out fucking 1, 2, 3, 4, went right through their set, just
Yeah.
nonstop, fucking
Yeah.
nailed it. It was awesome. I'm glad I got to see them, and I think this is a solid album. They kick it off
This
with a
is
Tom Waits cover,
yeah,
which is
great. And they do a great version of it too.
yeah,
I don't want to grow up. Great, great tune.
yeah,
Um, this has the Crusher, which is a great tribute
yeah.
to wrestling,
It's a good
sung
one.
by CJ. They do a great Johnny Thunders cover on here
Yeah,
called "I Love You." Um, Cretan
Cretan Fa-
Family, sung by
Cretan
CJ.
Family is almost like Cretan Family is to me almost like a Ramones doing a tribute to the Ramones. It just sounds so classic Ramones. That could easily have been off of one of the first three
Oh yeah,
albums.
but it's our last album. We're gonna write a song for all the fans,
Yeah.
because we're all Cretans,
And it's a they're stealing from their own album titles, Cretan Hop and We're a Happy Family,
Yeah.
I mean it's a great fucking tune. I really dig it.
And what's funny is there's a version of this last album that has Spider-Man on it again, and you know how I am. I already had it, so I'm like, God, I already have this, you know, and it shows up
There's
on
there's
this.
also a version that has the song Ramones that was
Yeah.
written by Motorhead. So I knew they fucking did a version of this.
Yeah, no, there was a studio, but they do it live, I believe, on that "We're Out of Here"
You're
live.
right, but it's also a bonus track on some versions of this album.
Yeah,
So Lemmy writes this killer tribute to the Ramones, and then the Ramones cover it, which is fucking awesome. She Talks to Rainbows is funny if you listen to the lyrics.
right.
Um, CJ Ramon has a couple songs that he wrote and sings on here.
Yeah,
So
he was weighing in and singing, and
yeah,
live he would do those songs, and so
yeah,
it was just cool to hear.
yep. It was as this is a good send off. Drop two well, actually, if you include Acid Eaters, three solid albums in a row, and their career was a lot. It was a long career, but when they were done, they were done. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
And they dropped three solid albums in a row. Adios, bitches, and they're
yeah.
out. And
And then so they had "We're Out of Here" was a live album, their final live at the Palace, and Lemmy is on here singing with them. This came, I believe, there was a videotape, like a VHS and the CD. So there was footage, you got to see the show. Um, the irritating thing overall, like you said earlier, the Ramones are just continuously getting passed up while people playing the same style of music and it's selling millions, and these young little twat waffles are not recognizing the imitation band.
Oh,
And
it's like when I went and
uh,
saw Cosmic Psychos, and the opening band is this 20 something band, and this guy's just imitating Pete Townsend the whole time,
right,
windmills and everything, and the crowd's going nuts. And the little fucking whippersnapper 22-year-olds, they didn't know who the fuck this guy was imitating.
yeah,
Oh wow, that windmill thing's pretty cool. We're Out of Here also has Tim and Lars from Rancid,
yeah, yeah,
one of the best, probably the best, without a doubt, the best punk band to come out of the 90s. Um,
yeah.
Still going strong to this day. We'll do a Rancid episode at some point. Solid, fucking nonstop, solid discography.
Yeah,
But
there's really not a bad spot in there, the Rancid stuff. But
no,
no, the thing that, it's one thing to go. Um, so you got a guitarist like Zach Wild, and Zach was in a band coming out of high school, and they were playing all these kind of current poppy stuff, and the whole band, they're playing these songs, but then when they come off the stage, they're putting Black Sabbath and they're listening to one style of music, but then they're up on stage playing a different style of music.
mhm,
And at some point, Zach's like, "What am I doing? Why?
yeah,
What am I doing?" And so,
yeah.
with that in mind, what's irritating is you can appreciate, and maybe your playing ability or your vocal ability kind of steers you towards maybe a blues band versus a thrash band, but you love thrash music, but maybe you just can't do that, and so you're doing something else. That's one thing,
That's
but
like us. We can't be musicians or filmmakers, so we're
we're
podcasters.
amazing at anything we do. I don't want to hear that.
Can
But
we
these people.
can we run down all the other people that were on this live album, or
Oh, go
how
ahead. Oh, I was
long
just
is
gonna say real quick that
it?
these bands go, oh, the Ramones are, oh, we've always, and you're like, fuck you. When have you even, I
Well,
just
I would
irritates
probably
me.
agree with bands like Blink 182, but Rancid, Total Ramones.
No, I'm saying
One of
I'm
those.
talking about Eddie Vedder going, oh, the Ramones, oh, and you're like,
Oh yeah.
fuck off.
So we both hate Pearl Jam, and we're not going to talk about Eddie Vedder scars this album with his presence, unfortunately. This We're Out of Here live album.
Yeah.
But aside from that one terrible mistake of letting that jackass sing on this album, you got Ben Shepherd from Soundgarden. You got Dee Dee Ramone singing a song coming back. You got Lemmy singing the song Ramones that he wrote. You got Lars Fredrickson and Tim Armstrong from Rancid, like I said. So it's a kind of just a celebration of the Ramones' career.
Kind of like Birthday Party, the Motorhead live album. The
There
same
you go.
kind of thing where everybody kind of comes and, you know,
Pays tribute.
yeah.
Yeah. So you know, anyways, that's the Ramones, man. What do you
Yeah.
got? You got anything else, or
There's
are
a
we out of here?
there was a retrospective box set for the Ramones that nothing spectacular that's not on the other albums, but still worth checking if you don't have any of that. Um, so that's really all I would add is those collections.
Cool. Well, we've almost dropped 2 hours on the Ramones. Well deserved. One of the best bands in the history of rock and roll, in my
Yeah,
opinion. Definitely in my top 5 or 10. Probably
they're
top
they're
five.
their dedication and just rock and roll purity. Um, Too many bands are swayed, and and even the Ramones maybe did some questionable songs, but the integrity was never lost, and I'll just always miss
It's
these
not.
guys.
It's not. It's not like the Replacements where you got an era of solid albums and then they just went 100% pop crap. The Ramones always came back to their base.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
but
they would go out and do some replacement style pop stuff, but they would always have, 3 to 5 solid kick ass songs on every
yeah,
album.
and
Can't
and
say
the,
that
the
for the
integrity,
Replacements. They went off the
integrity's
trail.
there. It's not an embarrassment. Um it's not like Def Leppard with you know you're like what happened.
Yeah, the first couple Def Leppard albums, if you
First
guys haven't
three,
heard "On Through the Night" and "High and Dry" are fucking
wow, and High
solid
and Dry is their
rock
best, but
songs.
I'll take Pyromania. It was a great
Yeah,
record. But after
right.
that, you're like, huh? And as they got further away from 1983, they're doing like country rock now or something.
It's an old story. We've seen so many bands do this.
Yeah,
Van Halen after David Lee Roth left, it just happens over and over again. Red Hot Chili Peppers. We got to stop mentioning these shitty ass bands on our
I
podcast.
would I'm never mentioning them. I won't do it.
All right.
Um,
So are we done? Are we
yeah,
all
yeah. I
right.
was I was trying to find the name of that oh, here we go. All right. So the the one live album, It's Alive, came out in 79. That
Uh
is a
Classic live
massive,
Ramones album.
but it's a
Yeah.
massive box set now that
Yeah.
has other shows and they were on fire in 79. Well worth tracking down. But
I think that might have been my gateway album to them because my mom had this boyfriend in the early 80s, total new wave punk rock music guy, and used to make fun of me for listening to Led Zeppelin, but he actually hit me to a lot of stuff, and he had It's Alive, the double album with the gatefold, the vinyl,
right, right.
and I remember listening to that, and that's when I went out and started buying some Ramones albums and getting into the Talking Heads and all that shit. So it's a good fucking album. That's captures them at that time
Yeah.
period.
So the box set I'm talking about is called Weird Tales of the Ramones, and it came out in '05. It's got 85 songs spread over 3 CDs, and then there's a DVD containing the lifestyles of the Ramones. A really good documentary made in 1990.
There you go.
And then so there's some rarities. I don't think anything most of it is from the albums. I don't think you're going to get some crazy
Well, Ramones
unreleased.
Mania seems to be the pit stop for all the B sides, right?
Ramones Mania will have like Rock and Roll High School, the movie version. um
Does it
there's
have
some.
Street Fighting Man and Spider Man and all that stuff?
No, Spider-Man was only on the later, and
Uh,
Street Fighting Man is uh the beast extension to one of the albums. You need one of the extended versions.
there you go. All right. Well, we'll track that shit down later. It's getting late, and I got to drop
Yeah,
a deuce, so I think we
right
should
on.
wrap this shit
Now
up.
we all know that.
All right. So, adios, amigos. We're out of here.
Yeah, deuces,
Literally.
literally.